we are in Sefer Orchot Tzaddikim, which we started just a few days ago, and we've gone through the introduction, and we have now started the first chapter on Gaiva, the first Midah, Gaiva. And what we've seen is that, of course, while in general the Torah sources are replete with instances and sources and proofs, indications for the very negative aspect of the attribute of Gaiva, what we saw most recently is that there are positive expressions for the Midah of Gaiva as well. So that, for example, a person shouldn't say, if Gaiva, arrogance, leads a person towards indulgence in things like food or clothing or other types of habits, then a person should retreat from the attribute of Gaiva to the opposite extreme and wear very simple, torn and ugly, dirty clothing, or eat very poor, inferior, unhealthy food. That's not the case. A person should have a healthy dose of Gaiva in order to give him the incentive to have proper food, which is going to be healthy food for himself and for the other people that he's responsible for taking care of. He should have nice clothing. It doesn't have to be the best clothing, but clean, presentable clothing, which is going to, be a source of respect for the person and not be a source for ridicule and other people disparaging him. So a person has to have a certain degree of Gaiva, just a sense of self-worth as well. And we also spoke about how if a person has certain talents, let's say he might be intelligent, or let's say he might have money, or he might be physically strong and able. So it'd be ridiculous and wrong from a Torah perspective to be aware, and certainly be wrong to fake not being aware of these things by saying, oh no, I'm not very intelligent, even though he knows he is. Or I'm not very wealthy, even though he knows he is. Or I'm not very strong, even though he knows he is. When all of those attributes could be used to the benefit of other people. So, for example, if he's intelligent, he should be aware of the fact he's intelligent, and being aware and admitting the fact that he's intelligent, even if he's aware of his being more intelligent than most other people, that itself is not an expression of arrogance. That's not arrogant. I am intelligent. I'm very intelligent. I'm intelligent than most people. From our background, that would sound like arrogant, prideful speech. But from a Torah perspective, that's not true. It's true. The person is, if in fact it's true, that he's above average intelligent. What would be prideful would be, right, to be arrogant about that and look down on other people as a result of that. But if he says, yes, it recognizes the fact that he's above average intelligence, but that was a God-endowed trait, attribute that I have, and therefore it was a gift to me, not something that I did to gain myself. It's a gift from God. I'm going to use that tool to help others who might not be as intelligent, who perhaps won't be able to learn Torah, understand as quickly or as easily, as thoroughly as he does. So he uses intelligence to help other people. And if he denies that intelligence, he's actually denying an important part of the reason why he was created, and would be preventing himself from doing the service of Hashem. So these are positive forms of arrogance, as it were. It's not arrogance when a person recognizes he is physically strong. He can use that strength to push around, bully other people, manipulate other people, and so forth and so on. That would be an avera, that would be gaiva, that would be arrogance. Or he could humbly say, Hashem created me with a strong physical constitution. I'm going to use that gift to help other people. Right? Help the old lady cross the street. And things like that. So certainly, when we're talking about refining one's midos, attributes, in order to find the venue to serving Hashem, which is what he talked about at length in the introduction, the first attribute, gaiva, being one of the worst, and he really elaborated on in just how many ways gaiva is a very bad attribute. Still, what we spoke about recently is that there's room for using gaiva in a positive sense too, and it's in that spirit that he continues saying similar ideas regarding food and one's eating habits. So that's on the bottom of page Yud Gimel. Gam ma'acholo hiye noki v'lo yochal ma'adinei melech. You've got it? Yeah. A person's food, similarly, should not be of the most dainty types of foods. Ach ma'achal benoni umashke benoni, but rather average, normal, plain, straightforward foods. Lefi hosagas yado, according to his ability to attain. V'lo yishte v'lo yochal b'chelim meusim, page Yudaled at the top. He should not eat with vessels it's old and rusty and dirty or something like that. Like he said, If arrogance is a bad thing, leading to a person to want to acquire too many good things, he shouldn't say, well, then I'm going to have my eating utensils be the simple, most unappealing types of things. No, because then a person's eating his food in a state of disgust, and that's not healthy. If he eats in these type of disgusting vessels, then he'll be transgressing what it says about not causing yourselves to become disgusted. Rather, everything should be clean, so he doesn't have to have the most expensive vessels, that's for sure, but they should be clean and well kept. By the way, a person should not eat on broken vessels, plates, or drink from glasses which are broken. And that's certainly true in terms of Kabbalah, that a vessel which is incomplete is considered to be improper and perhaps spiritually dangerous to eat from. But even more than that, just physically speaking, it's dangerous to eat on a plate or drink from a cup that's cut. Right? It could be dangerous. Nikius, being clean, and from where we're from, this is not so common, but there are places where it is more common. Sometimes people spit. They might have something stuck in their throat or something. And they want to admit that. The Talmud prohibits that because a person who sees that is disgusted by it. It's grossed out. First has to clean his throat, and he can't do it in a private place. It's got to be in a public place. He has to try and move aside. It's common here. Well, it's more common maybe here or in other places. People have less of a kind of problem or taboo against that type of thing. But still, it's improper, and a person shouldn't do that. So a person should have enough self-respect not to do that. Not to do that in public. That's why I'm connecting here. A person might say, well, anyway, I want to be humble and lowly and simple. That type of behavior is unacceptable. Gam shulchano hiye naki. So too, a person's table should be clean. Gam mitaso tihe nakiya. A person's bed. Either here it means his bed literally where he sleeps, or sometimes bed is used as a couch, place where he sits. All of his matters should be clean. Basically what he's saying is his furnishings, his household things, his furniture, all of these things should be not necessarily the most expensive, certainly not. They can be simple, but should be clean. Gam gufi enoki, his body should also be clean. V'lo mezuam, not sweaty and dirty. Ach yizar le'erchotz panav yodav v'raglav, he should be careful to wash at least his hands, face, and feet. Gam kol gufo, off his body, the itim from time to time. We're talking about in a time and in a culture where water was much less common than it is in nowadays in the countries that we live in. So and hygiene had different standards then. So people would wash their hands, face, and feet on a regular basis, but their whole bodies not necessarily. Nowadays we wash much more often. So what's considered to be acceptable, a person should try and do. Everybody's got running water, and therefore a person should shower and use soap and be clean. And the standard that's acceptable nowadays. Gam kol gufo the itim kasher matzinu behillel hazaken, like we found by Hillel hazaken, that he was careful to be presentable. Particularly we're talking about washing your face and your hands, washing your mouth before davening, so you'd be presentable in front of Hashem. Person wakes up in the morning, he's got to wash his hands properly 3 times, alternating each hand. Wash his face. Make sure his eyes are clean and his face is clean before appearing before Hashem. And going to the bathroom, of course, is a necessity. When Hillel departed from his students, he was going with them. His students said to Hillel, Rabbi, our Rabbi, where are you going? He said to them, I'm going to do a mitzvah. What mitzvah are you going to do? He said to them, I'm going to wash in the bathhouse. So taking a bath is a mitzvah. They said, is that a mitzvah? To go take a bath in the bathhouse? Yes it is. If things like statues of kings, which they place in the theaters and other types of public places like marketplaces, there's a certain person whose job it is to make sure that these statues and the statuary should be clean, and he actually gets paid for that. That's his job. V'lo'od ele shehu mizgadel im gedolei malchus. Such a person is actually, he grows together with the, I guess he's part of the royal entourage, is being responsible for making sure that the king's statues are clean and presentable. Ani shenivresi betzelem udvus. I, who was created in the image of God, dichsiv ki betzelem elokim, also as Adam, in the image of God, God made man. Alachas kamel chama, all the more so. Right? It's a nice idea. It's true. Nowadays, museums, theaters, all different types of places where there's statues, there's somebody responsible for cleaning the statues, make sure that everything's proper and they're in the right place, they'll adjust them, so forth and so on. So all the more so, we have to make sure that we're clean and that our posture is presentable as representatives of Hashem. And therefore it's really wrong, what some people do when, as visibly religious, observant people, they walk around with dirty clothing or bad-smelling bodies because they're not clean or not showered properly. Nowadays, it's really not, there's really no reason. I mean, most people, aside from people who live on the street, have access to running water and can shower. And therefore it's important. Even when you go to a mikveh, there are people who go right into the mikveh tub and then they take a shower. Take a shower first and then go to the mikveh. All right? Everybody has to go into the mikveh where people clean their bodies off in. It shouldn't be that way. A person should take a shower, rinse himself off, and then go to the mikveh. You want to take a shower afterwards? Go ahead and take a shower afterwards, but at least take one before. But in any case, the point is to make sure that a person is clean and presentable. And Hillel says that this was a mitzvah. And furthermore, at the end of that paragraph, the first paragraph on page Yudalid, Kol Po'al Hashem L'ma'anehu. Everything that Hashem made was for Him, for His honor, for His glory. Anybody who's careful with these things, and not just for hygiene, because he wants to smell nice, or she wants to look good, or he or she wants to be presentable to other people, but rather because it's a mitzvah. I'm doing this with a mitzvah. Anybody who does it with a mitzvah in mind, of these goals, and not with the intention of just looking nice and feeling good about how one looks, even though these things might be interpreted as gaiva, as pride, otherwise why is he or she taking such interest in how she looks, how he looks? Since his intention is for Hashem, there's a mitzvah. Right? So next time you take a shower, right, you can turn that shower for something which is totally mundane into a mitzvah. You know, the details of this type of thing are endless. You have a havrusa, and they're learning together. And one of them has had for lunch something like garlic or onions. And now he's going to be learning face to face with the havrusa. It would be common decency, right, to brush his teeth before the havrusa. Why should the havrusa have to suffer the bad smell wafting from this person's mouth? Common decency, yeah. And therefore it's very important. The idea of brushing your teeth, some people neglect it. First of all, it's healthy to brush your teeth, floss your teeth. It's healthy, good for your gums, good for your teeth. It also gives good breath. But I mean, it's healthy. God created you with a healthy body, and just like it says, you're supposed to guard your body so that you're healthy. The same thing with your teeth. Brush your teeth. Plus, you should have a good smelling, your mouth should not be foul smelling when you're praying or learning Torah. And therefore, these types of things. Using deodorant. It's true that in Jewish sources there's a certain reluctance for men to use perfume. But in the Talmud, that's discussed in terms of a man using perfume to attract the attention of other people. And he might be suspected of being homosexual. He's trying to act like a woman wearing perfume in order to attract attention to himself. And that's true. But that's all said regarding wearing perfume. Wearing nice-smelling deodorant to cover off bad body odor, that's of course permitted, and according to what we're seeing here, it's actually a mitzvah. If a person doesn't smell good, doesn't smell clean, it turns off other people. It could be like a chilul Hashem. So wearing deodorant, which has a good smell, would be okay, because it's covering a bad smell, not necessarily a good smell. Things about cologne, that's a different story. Men wear, men's cologne, which is basically perfume. So if a person wanted to avoid that, there would certainly be basis for that. If a person, for whatever reason, wants to have cologne above and beyond wearing, good-smelling deodorant just to have a perfume, so I guess it would depend, on where the person lives, what the person's occupation is, what they're doing. If he works, for example, in a place, the country, the social code is such that men wear cologne, I suppose it could be okay. But his intention would have to be that, and he should only put on a little bit. It's all for the purpose of being presentable in the work environment in a way which is going to make him acceptable in that particular work environment. Particularly when he needs to earn money in order to support himself and his children, have a Torah lifestyle. That's part of the mitzvah. But at the same time, he'd have to be very careful not to spend too much money on too expensive cologne, on not wearing too much of it, with the intention of attracting other people's attention. Right? And that's a problem. Even men splash on cologne or whatever. And they think, well, they smell good for the women. Yeah? So a religious guy who's working in a type of setting where there are women, and might be wearing cologne initially because that's considered to be kind of, the industry's paradigm. But at the same time, he finds that he's trying to impress, let's say, women with his perfume or his cologne. So that's a sign that he's doing the wrong thing. Right? You shouldn't do that. In any case, the general rule of thumb here is that a person, in all of his ways, the way he's dressed, the way he eats, the things that he has, his belongings, his furnishings, his home, should all be decent things which are clean and presentable, but not over expensive, and certainly not with the intention of impressing other people. On Yud Daled, the next paragraph starting with the word Ga'ava. Ga'avas chochma u'masim tovim. That was all, right, the whole discussion, if you remember, he made two distinctions. Pride as it pertains to a person's body, and pride as it pertains to physical things, and pride as it pertains to a person's attributes. Regarding pride, as it refers to a person's, let's say, physical things, his body, we've already discussed, negatively and positively. Now he's going to the second subdivision, which is pride in one's attributes. So, Gavas Chochma Umasim Tovim Yesh B'Shnei Chalakim. Pride or arrogance regarding one's wisdom or his good deeds, there are also two subdivisions. Ho'echad Tov, one is good, Ve'echad Ra, the one is bad. Hagava harahi, the bad one is, asher yivaze b'nei adam belibo ubefiv. He disparages, looks down upon, ridicules and criticizes other people in his mouth or in his heart. V'kulim katanim epechutim benav. And all of the people are like small and insignificant in his eyes. So he's arrogant. And he's constantly praising himself that he's very wise, or he's X, or he's Y, or he's Z. Not that he's expressing his awareness of this, but he's praising himself over it. That's the problem. He'll never own up to the truth because of his great arrogance. He'll always think that his ideas, his words, the things that he does are always going to be more elevated than that of his friends. And he's constantly looking to glorify himself with his wisdom or with his deeds. He's constantly looking for acknowledgement and praise for his deeds. That's an ego, right? That person's arrogant. He's always looking for people to stroke his ego. And if they don't do it, he has to make aware to other people his strengths. I'm this, I'm that. Of course, most people are not going to be so socially inept, although some are, but most will not be so socially inept that they're going to be outright open about praising themselves in order to engender other people's praise. But in subtle ways, they'll let people know what they do, their accomplishments, right? In an indirect way. So on the one hand, they don't stick out as being totally arrogant in other people's eyes, but on the other hand, they get the recognition that they're looking for in the praise. V'alzeh amar Shlomo, regarding this, it was said by Solomon, Yehalelcha zar velo picha. Let another person, a stranger, let a stranger praise you and not your own mouth. Better somebody else praise you and not yourself. And if nobody else is praising you, so don't praise yourself. The prideful person will always be designating good for himself. Since he thinks he's great in all ways, he'll really never expend very much effort to do anything, even in Torah learning. He'll take it easy. He'll be lackadaisical about it. Because he really doesn't care about the kavod shemaim, the honor, the glory of God. The main thing is he should look good. So he'll say a nice vort. Yeah, he'll say something that he thinks will impress other people, even if it's not a Torah teaching. He'll say it in the name of the Torah so that he gets credit for it. Right? The main thing is that it should sound good, that he should sound good. The main thing is that the world should say, oh, he's a good person. He's bright. And for him, that's enough. And also because of his pride, right? It's not enough that he's looking for praise for himself. He's actually looking to trip other people up, and he's happy when other people mess up, because the lower other people look, by distinction, the higher he looks. And therefore he takes advantage of these types of scenarios. And he seeks glory and honor through the embarrassment of his friend. This is one of the 24 things that are listed that prevent a person from doing tshuva, gaiva. Why? Because he thinks he's always good. He thinks he's always right. He always thinks he's doing the best thing. So why, if he's so good, he's the best, what's there to change? No reason to do tshuva. A person whose deeds are all good, and he praises himself in order to be honored through them. A very good type of a dish, pot, which is seasoned with very different types of spices. But it stays by the fire until it gets burnt. It gets all overcooked. Until it's not worth eating this otherwise very delectable dish because it's been burned and overcooked. So a person who is glorious with his glorifies his own deeds, he becomes overly cooked and actually putrid because of the praise that he's looking for himself. So it very well might be that he has these good attributes. He is intelligent. That's a very good thing. Or he's a very kind person. That's a very good thing. But if he's arrogant about that intelligence or that goodness, rather than ascribing it to the goodness and the bounty, the blessing of God, and using it to serve God, so as a result, these good things, they go sour. It's like overkill. It's overdone. It's very important. And like I said the other day, a person can also be very proud about his humility. That you have to be careful about. A person can recognize that he's supposed to be humble, that humility is something which is admired by other people. So in his search for honor and glory, he'll make himself intentionally humble seeming. And in the very act of his expression of humility, his heart is full of pride. Wow, I'm really humble. I'm doing a great job impressing people about just how humble I am. Right? Those are the wiles of the Yetzer, and a person has to be careful of all that stuff. That's all regarding somebody who actually has these attributes and he's praising himself over what he has. But there are other people whose arrogance is so great, with such audacity, they praise themselves and seek recognition over things which they don't even have. Somebody who glorifies himself because of wisdom or the deeds which he doesn't have, there's nothing worse than that. It was said by the sages, if people, let's say, show a person honor because they think he knows two mesechtas, and he only knows one. Yomer lehen she'enu yodea el echad. He should say, look, in all truth, I really only know one. He doesn't have to deny knowing the one, but he has to deny knowing the two, which he doesn't. Kol sheken v'kol sheken shelo yate es ha'olam she'achzikuhu beheskas gedoylo she'enu bo. All the more so, he has to set the record straight if he knows that people are attributing to him certain strengths which he doesn't have at all. Meaning, people might be given a mistaken impression about this person, not because anything that he's done or said, but just the impression that he gives, perhaps. Or something that someone says and a rumor starts, and they think, without his intending this at all, that he's more than he really is. And then he becomes aware that people think this way. He's got to set them straight. I don't know that, or I don't have that, or I don't do that, or whatever the case may be. And if that's true, all the more so a person has to be careful not to do anything to intentionally mislead other people to get recognition for things he doesn't have. V'da, she'anachnu mechuyavim she'iyu kol ma'aseinu miyuchodim l'shem borei saleh. All of our actions have to be designated specially for God. B'golui u'b'seser, whether revealed or in private. V'kol ma'aseh avodas elokim yeh la'agia al ratzon bilvad. And all of our serving of Hashem has to be the intention of getting to a point where we're doing His will alone, and not gaining glory in other people's eyes. So, for example, he puts on tefillin. Clearly, tefillin is a mitzvah. And in general, a person is putting on tefillin because he wants to fulfill the mitzvah. But if, when putting on the tefillin, he makes all types of poses, whatever they may be, he might be very strong. So as he's putting on the tefillin, he makes a pose with his biceps and showing the guys next to him just how strong he is. Or another guy might, put on the tefillin in such a very delicate way to show that he's so spiritual and he's so connected and he's having all these intentions. When it's not really true. It might be true. There might be a person who really does have that connection. We're not talking about that. Somebody who's faking the connection. Yeah? So he's really not doing the mitzvah with the intention of serving Hashem. He's doing it with ulterior motives. He's using the mitzvah to get recognition for himself. So who is he serving? Himself. He's making an avodah zarah out of himself. And this would be one of the ways in which we say that a person who serves, a person who's gaivadik, a person who is haughty, is as if he serves avodah zarah. Why? He's making himself the object of worship. Everybody's attention and everybody's kind of praise should be directed towards Hashem. And here he's trying to direct people's praise and recognition to himself. So who's he putting himself in place of? Hashem. Look at me. Come see me. Be impressed by me. In this way, he's deflecting people's interest from Hashem. So this is very insidious. V'kol sheken shelo yit'eh ha'olam sheyachziku beheskas gedoyla she'enu ba. V'da she'anachnu mechuyavim she'iyu kol ma'aseinu miyuchodim l'Shem borei saleh b'golu u'b'seser v'kol ma'aseh avodas elokim yeh la'agia al ratzon bilvad. Bilti ratzon b'nei adam lekovois shevach al ma'asehu v'kabel kavoid. Without people's natural tendency to do things in order to get the praise, the hope that they'll get praise for themselves. Ach ya'aseh hakol l'Shem makel hamashkif el halev. Rather, he should do everything for God, and God looks at one's heart, not one's external actions. As it says in the verse, Ani Hashem choker lev. I'm God who investigates, is aware of what's going on in a person's heart. Boichen klayos. I discern what's going on in a person's kishkas, in his kidneys. Vomer hanistaros la Hashem Elokeinu. Furthermore, it says in the verse that the hidden matters, they are revealed to God. The things which we hide in our heart, the inner intentions that we have when we do all types of things, when it's really not an altruistic motive, rather it's an ulterior motive for our own aggrandizement. These are the things that Hashem is aware of. Therefore, if a person is not on his guard, he's not making sure that he's careful to avoid anything having to do with gaiva and the like, he's likely to get stuck, ensnared. Even if he's learned Torah and he's got good deeds, who yoresh gehinnom, such a person ultimately is going to inherit what? Gehinnom. Why? Because the Yetzer is constantly there, encouraging a person, inciting a person, luring a person into different forms and venues of gaiva. In the end, his wisdom, which would otherwise be a venue through which he can serve Hashem and benefit the world, that very same intelligence of his spells his very own downfall. That's an amazing thing. So, for example, Chazal say, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Ubarasi Torah Tavlin. Are you familiar with that phrase? Right? I created the Yetzer Hara and I created the Torah as a Tavlin for the Yetzer Hara. Which is interesting when you think about it, because you would have thought that what God would say, I created the Yetzer Hara and I created the Torah as a spade to uproot that ill weed. But that's not true. We see that the Torah is called a tavlin. A tavlin is a spice. A spice spices something up. It makes it palatable. So we're saying that the Torah kind of spices up the Yetzer Hara. That's what the Torah is all about. That's what the Yetzer Hara is. What's going on? What's that all about? Well, you see from here, I created the Yetzer Hara. I created the inclination to use attributes in a negative way. For example, intelligence. And if a person uses intelligence in a bad way, that intelligence can ultimately uproot him from the world. But I created the Torah as a tavlin, I created the Torah as a proper spice to use that arrogance, right? Not to uproot it, but to spice it up, to cure it, to make it palatable, so that you can use it in a proper way. In the ways that we've been suggesting, for example. So the very same attribute can actually get you to Gehinnom, Chas v'Shalom, or if you use it properly, Lo'olam Haba. And by the way, Nachash, which is the source of the Yetzer Hara within us, the venom of the Nachash was injected into Eve and Adam. This Nachash, which is the Yetzer Hara, which is the Satan, has the same gematria as Mashiach. Mashiach, right? Nachash is Nun, Shin Chet, and Mashiach, the Mem and the Yud, equal the Nun. So the same thing. How can that be? They're two polar opposites. Well, you see from here that what we were discussing. That same power of the Nachash can direct a person to uproot a person from this world, like we say. Gaiva is one of the three things that can uproot a person from this world. But if a person uses properly, together as is so with all the other attributes, he can actually bring about the Mashiach, the tikkun of the Olam. Therefore, don't be lazy in your battle to overcome the Yetzer Hara daily, on a daily basis. This is called a big war. As we find by one of the Hasidim. I believe this story is also brought down in Chovos Levavos. But in any case, there's a story there of a person who meets people coming home from warfare. This righteous person sees people coming back from the war. And they coming back with great bounty, with great booty. They won the war. Amar lehem, he said to them, Shavtem min milchama katana. You're coming back from a small war, a small battle. But you're coming, Amulo, Mahir milchama, Ve'adayin atem asidim l'milchama gdoila. But now you're going to go back to a big war. Amulo, they said to him, Mahir milchama. What's this big battle that you're discussing? We're not aware of any enemy. Amar hayetzer v'cheilosov, the Yetzer and all of his cohorts. Ki kol oyev sheyesh lecha shetenatzeach oso pa'am achas o shtayim o shalosh az yaniach oscha. Any physical enemy, once you've conquered them once or twice or three times, it's a certain amount of times until they might not be your friend, but they're at least not going to be your enemy. But that's not the case regarding the Yetzer Hara. Aval Yetzer eino posek mimcha afim hiyeh notzuach mea pamim. The Yetzer Hara won't let a person down, won't let a person go, even if you've overcome 100 times. As it was said by the sages, don't believe in yourself, meaning don't rely on yourself to overcome the Yetzer Hara until the day you die. Why? The Yetzer Hara is very subtle, very wily, and it's constantly going at a person. It's like a fly. Do you ever see a fly get discouraged? Never. Fly comes back. The fly comes back. The fly comes back. 100 times, 1,000 times, the fly goes back. That's the Yetzer Hara. It's like a fly. That's the Yetzer Hara. For your entire life, it will lie in hiding and just wait for the moment that you close your eyes, boom, and pounce upon you. And if the Yetzer Hara overcomes you, even with the smallest and the lightest things, don't take that lightly. Well, it was just that. Or it was just that. That's not the end of the world. That's just a custom. It's just a minig. Or, that's unfortunate, but look, it's only d'Rabbanan, it's not d'Oraisa. That's because that's not how it works. The Yetzer, when it overcomes a person, even if it's only in small things, ultimately, you're giving it an inroad to conquer you in bigger things. And that's why it's very important to be on your guard, whether it be light things or small things, not to give way. And since arrogance is the entranceway to many other bad attributes, the Yetzer is involved in the heart of a person. The whole purpose is to make impure the truth and to make true that which is falsehood. And the Yetzer tells the person, yes, you should really be aware of how good you are, or how much you've done. Yes, that was great, good job, so forth and so on. And therefore you have to constantly be in your guard not to take credit for the things you've done. You can be aware of the things you've done, you can acknowledge the things you've done, but not take credit for them. Let Hashem give the credit. And you give credit to Hashem where credit is due. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you did for me the other day. That it was really, first of all, it was very thoughtful. Secondly, it was very sensitive. And thirdly, the fact that you were able to do that, I'm really impressed. Thank you so much. Well, it was nothing. Anytime. That's potentially a very arrogant response. All of this great stuff that he's praising you about was really nothing for you. Nothing. In fact, you can do it anytime. This is how subtle it gets. A person can say, "Oh, nothing, anytime," which means don't think anything about it, and I'd be willing to do it for you anytime. But simultaneously, a person could also be thinking, well, really, it's true. Not everybody could do that, and I was able to do it. In fact, I could probably do anything like that, anytime, on demand. Be very careful, right? Thank you very much for thanking me, but the truth is, I have to give thanks and praise where thanks is due. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. May I always be willing and able to do these things when people ask. May Hashem enable me to do these things for people when they ask. That's already a different type of response. I thank Hashem for the fact that I was able to do it, and I would consider it to be an honor if Hashem allows me to do it again in the future. So that would be humility.